Naomi King, talking about money. Well, I want to welcome all my new subscribers and anyone who's watching for the first time. I thought it'd be fun just to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Naomi King, and just to let you know a little bit why I like to talk about money, why it's such an important topic in my life, and what's led me to want to teach something that most people don't really want to talk about. So I know full well that all of us have some money baggage. Our past associations with money run deep, and our stories are varied in this country. But we all have some stories, right? Whether you come from poverty and you've struggled with food, or middle class where it's currently becoming harder and harder to afford college, or upper class with maybe complacent overabundance or stuffitis in your background. We all have some kind of story. So my first memories around money are full of incredible stress. I come from the poverty end of the spectrum, well below poverty actually. And this story really is not that unusual, right? Single mother, 2 children, struggling with everything from housing to childcare, food, healthcare. So we stayed for a period of time with my mother's brother, and then not too far away from his home, we found like a rundown former motel that had been turned into some rental apartments. And if you can imagine one of those single-story strip motels, our unit was on the far end, and it was the largest of all of the units. We had 2 bedrooms with a kitchen and a living room, and all the other units, there were like 8 or 10. Each of them only had a single room with a bathroom. And we were the only females in this whole old motel. And let me tell you, my mom has lots of colorful stories. This place was so neglected that the metal motel sign was still standing tall on Main Street, although those days of being a proper motel were far behind it. Imagine like one of those big old metal Las Vegas signs, right? That was the backdrop of my childhood. So this former motel was going to be the short-term solution for my family, but temporary turned into 7 long years of getting by. Now, major money stress aside, my life was not that bad, right? Love can replace a lot of stuff, and we had plenty of that. When I turned 10, that's when we moved to a neighboring town, and we finally moved into what I would consider like a normal apartment, right? This was great. 2 steps forward, yay. However, trouble tends to follow you, right, when you're living on the edge. And that fall, I was hit by a car as a pedestrian. I had an ambulance ride, a broken arm, a short emergency visit, and just by really bad coincidence, just days later, my mother's car was totaled in a spectacular way. So following a series of unfortunate events, our family filed bankruptcy that following year, 2 steps back. It's important to note here that for all the bad rap that people put on personal bankruptcies, this is actually what the majority of bankruptcies look like in America, right? Simply people who are a single event away from a catastrophe. Harvard University recently put out an article that said that medical expenses account for 62% of all personal bankruptcies. One of the interesting caveats of this study is that almost 80% of those people who filed actually had some form of health insurance. So this just destroys the myth that medical bills only are affecting the uninsured. Now, parents, of course, suffer horribly during bankruptcy, but to neglect the children of this process is to miss a big part of the trauma. Now, every kid is different, and my sister's response was very different from me. She was the fighter, the work-like-crazy person to make sure that this never happens to her again. Now, I was a worker, but I was much more of an introvert with regards to the stress. I didn't want people to know the struggles that we were suffering. And I had a lot of shame. And I wore the pain inwardly, and I presented that everything is okay front. As a side note, perhaps my greatest personal embarrassment was my sense of shame around my struggle in school. I read very late, and I was so embarrassed by my struggle in school. Once again, this isn't terribly uncommon for children living in poverty, right? This happens all the time. Well, stress and the brain recordings continued to follow me into adulthood. And always the question would revolve around the following. How would money define me? How would money define me? And over, my default was security, security, security at all cost, security in money. And with this as my default, as my guiding principle, I can quickly fall into becoming a self-serving miser. However, self-preservation around money, right, is a really terrible way to live. It's a terrible idea because money, right, it's like the wind. I love the way that Proverbs 25 describes it. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off like an eagle. Such a great way to describe it. So if life is like a quick fading grass, then money is like the first morning dew on the seed of that grass. Is that profound? That's profound. I thought of that. I should tweet that. I like that. So anyway, my life is a daily prayer, not to make an idol out of money. I've spent my adult life learning as much as I possibly can about the principles around money. I genuinely enjoy the topic, which is kind of weird. But I have to be really careful not to make my life, my joy, and my security money. Tim Keller, in his amazing book, Counterfeit Gods, he tells several stories of people in his hometown of New York City who killed themselves following the disaster of the fall of 2008. These people were utterly defined by their money, and when it was gone, they didn't have any idea who they were. Their lives were not worth living. Now, I started teaching because I believe that money is an important aspect of our lives. To neglect it, right, is to squander all the gifts that we've been given. But to love it, though, that is to make it a god, and it is not a fun or a safe god to serve. I know this from personal experience. I really, really want this silly YouTube channel just to be a place of discussion and questions around this topic of money. If you have a question, please go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I would love to answer any of your questions in an upcoming video. And if I don't know the answer, I'll do the best research I know how to help you find the answer. This is only fun for me if it's a discussion between us. And I am thrilled that you are here to join me in this journey of life and money. Thanks so much.